Welcome back to Open Line, talking medical malpractice. I have with us medical malpractice attorney Kent Kelly. Several calls. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to George. Hello, George.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, question for Mr. Kelly. Was it time, is there a certain time frame for people to file malpractice lawsuit?
There is, George. You've got, in Tennessee, 1 year from the date that you discover your injury. So once you learn or suspect that you've been injured as a result of bad medical care, the clock starts ticking on you, and you've got to send what's called pre-suit notice, which is basically a letter. It's formatted a certain way, and it has to be mailed to the doctor, and that has to be done within 1 year. Once that's done, you get an additional 120 days to actually file your lawsuit. That's why I always encourage people, if you think that's what's happened to you, that you've gotten bad medical care and there's been a bad injury, call immediately. Do not wait, because there are a lot of people who I've had to turn away because they waited too long.
1 year is not that long.
It's really not.
When you look at other statute of limitations, 1 year is very short.
It is the shortest. We have one of the shortest in the nation, and the problem being is a lot of people don't really absorb the consequences of what's happened to them until down the road. Some people think they're going to get better. They're told by the doctor, hey, it may take a year for you to fully recover, and then that year runs out. They haven't gotten better like they thought, and then all of a sudden the time's run out on them. So don't wait. The call's free, and you don't want to find yourself out in the cold if you do have a case.
So you have a year after you discover the problem.
That's correct. And
then another 120 days. 120 days, what you're talking about is filing. That's when you have to have an expert that's ready to go.
That's right. That extra 4 months is designed to be a cooling off period where both parties can kind of evaluate the case. It gives you an opportunity also to go get an expert. But you've got to file your lawsuit within that additional 120 days, or you're barred.
All right, George, thanks for the question. Let's go to Alan. Hello, Alan.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I had my bladder removed, and before I done this, I was aware that my bladder was going to be taken out, and that's it. And when I got done with the operation, they took out my prostate gland and my seminal sacs, and now I'm impotent.
Alan, did you understand before the surgery that you were going to have your prostate removed?
No, sir. He never said a word.
Well, did you discuss this with the doctor about, well, hey, why'd you take my prostate out?
No, not yet. No.
Now, this is a good time, Alan, to discuss this. There's a concept in law called medical battery, Ben, and medical battery is simply an unauthorized surgery. It can either be the wrong body part, it can be the wrong patient, or it can be a surgery that exceeds the scope of the authority that the patient gave. If the patient says, look, you can take my bladder out, and then the doctor goes in and takes the prostate out as well, that can be thought of as a medical battery. Now, the question I would have in this case is, was this medically necessary? In other words, when the doctor went in to remove Alan's bladder, did he see something during the surgery that made him think, I've got to get this out now, because if I leave this thing in, Alan's health may be compromised or his life may be in danger. And those are built into the consent forms. But he can't just go take the bladder out and then say, I think I'll just go ahead and take the prostate out now while I got a chance. You've got to get Alan's consent to do that.
And it seems like if that had happened, he would have talked about it a lot afterward. Like, we went in and we found this, it's a big problem, so we had to do more than we talked about.
Right, and I don't know why Alan had to have his bladder removed, but you would expect this surgeon to say, you know, Alan, I may get in there because of your condition and find that there's some additional damage, whether it could be cancer, and I may have to go in there and remove some of your prostate or some adjacent tissues around the bladder, and I want you to understand that before I go in. That needs to be explained to the patient, so the patient doesn't just wake up from the surgery and find out they're impotent. So Alan may have a claim. It's a little hard to tell because I don't know enough about it, but that Alan did the right thing by calling here, and he can call my office if he wants to discuss it further and speak to Nurse Kathy. That's my assistant.
Now, when you talk about this concept of medical battery, What are some other situations you've come across?
Classic example of it, I've got a case right now where a mother's baby was operated on by mistake. Nick did the story on it here on Channel 5. Case of mistaken identity. He just mixed the babies up and did the surgery on the wrong baby. I had another case where a lady was supposed to have elbow surgery on her left arm, woke up and she had scars on her right arm because the doctor got the elbows mixed up. Had a case with a man who was supposed to have left ankle fusion, which is really just basically putting a plate in the ankle, and the doctor went further and did a fusion of the heel, and because the surgery was so invasive and above and beyond the authority that the patient gave, the man ended up having to have an amputation. So it happens a lot more than you think. I think it's going to continue to happen, perhaps even at a greater pace, because we have three things going on at the same time. We have more patients coming into the system. We have less time that doctors can spend with patients before surgery to make sure they understand what they're doing and what the authority is of the patient. And third, we have, in essence, patients who are not as educated about procedures as they used to be because of that lack of time. And so when you have that much time compression, the safety margin continues to decrease, and more of these things continue to happen.
That is interesting. So more people coming into the system. Basically what you're talking about is a system where people are just a little more overwhelmed. I mean, they're working more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, the doctors have to keep their pay up. But in addition to that, the hospitals have to keep their revenues up, and so they put a tremendous amount of pressure on the doctors and the nurses to do as many procedures as possible, because those procedures are revenue for the hospital. So think about that, Ben. If you come in one day and you got to do 25, then the following week you've got to do 28, how much? There's only so many hours in a day, only so much time you can spend with the patient. That's a lot of pressure to get things done, and that's when shortcuts get made and mistakes happen.
Let's go to Alice. Hello, Alice.
Yes, I'm Alice.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I had a doctor to tell me, I tried to tell him that I was sick in February, and he told me that if it had anything to do with allergies, he didn't treat allergies, and perhaps I need to move out of Middle Tennessee. As a result, I've been sick since February. I am still sick. My chest is full of mucus.
Well, Alice, I don't know if that's a case of medical negligence or not. What I would do in your situation, I go get myself a second opinion. And I tell that to a lot of people who call me who are in the midst of making medical decisions. They're not sure if they've been injured, but they don't know whether they fully recovered, and they've completely lost trust in their doctor. Once that faith has been broken, Ben, we were talking about that trust earlier in the show. Once that faith has been broken, it's hard for a doctor to get it back, and that's when it's time for the patient to go get a second opinion and see whether or not they're being given proper advice.
Do you think people do that enough? I mean, you hear that all the time, go get a second opinion, but do people really do it?
No.
They don't, do they?
No. It's really amazing. People will get word-of-mouth referrals for where they get their hair cut, but they won't get a second opinion on a life-altering medical decision. I don't get it. But I will continue to preach on these shows that is an absolute necessity, in my judgment, if you're going to have any type of major procedure, or if you think that the advice you're getting from your doctor is not working, get a second opinion.
All right, we'll take a break. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.